Mike, so even though Sutton's entering a pretrial diversion program to resolve the case, which is what happened, I think, on like mid-April, that doesn't count in the NFL's eyes as like an admission. Right. Okay, I did something. The NFL doesn't look at it that way.
You're refreshing my memory on this. I thought this was the case where the charges were dropped.
No.
If he goes into a pretrial diversion program, then he is subject to discipline. But again, you have to ask the question of how aggressively the alleged victim will cooperate. They're going to be left with whatever the facts are that he's admitted to in order to get into that diversion program. But the diversion program does change things. So I stand corrected. If the charges are dropped, it's almost impossible. With a diversion program, the NFL doesn't care if it wasn't a guilty plea or a no contest plea. That's enough to activate the process, and then we see what the end result will be by way of a suspension that would be effective as of week 1.
Mike, I'm going to read from the affidavit here, and this was reported down in Tampa where the incident occurred. Quote, during the argument, Sutton picked up the woman and slammed her into a wall, then bit her on the neck, leaving a quarter-sized abrasion that bled. Sutton then grabbed the woman by the face and neck and choked her, causing her to briefly lose consciousness. That was in the affidavit. Do those kind of details from that kind of report, would that factor into the NFL's decision?
Absolutely, if he had to admit that that is true as part of the terms of entering into the diversion program. If those facts become established and proven without requiring the alleged victim to cooperate, then that's going to set him up for potential discipline. And after Ray Rice, what the NFL did, they created a baseline of 6 games for domestic violence. It can go up with aggravating circumstances. It can go down with mitigating circumstances. We've seen as low as 1 game for domestic violence. If you remember Josh Brown, the Giants kicker from several years ago, and the NFL didn't have a whole lot of transparency with that, and a lot of people were confused as to what in the world happened there. But 6 is the baseline, and it can deviate up or down from there based upon other factors. And if those facts are regarded as 100% true, that could at least get him in line for a 6-game suspension. But again, until we know exactly what the diversion program entails by way of facts regarded as 100% true, it's impossible to know what the NFL then has to say, we know this guy did what he's accused of doing.
Yeah, Mike, all I have on the story that I'm reading on this is that the diversion program, he isn't allowed to have weapons or firearms, has to undergo a mental health evaluation, and has a probationary period, and is not allowed contact with the alleged victim here, or I guess they can say victim because he entered a pretrial diversion program, but nothing about what it caused him to admit or not admit. On another
and the whole purpose of that is if he complies with all the terms, it's like it never happened.
Okay.
That's what makes it different from a guilty plea. If he complies, it just goes away.
Does one of those pretrial diversion programs typically only get offered with the victim or alleged victim's consent? Is that something that they have to go to the other person involved in a domestic violence case and say, are you willing or are you okay with him entering this program this way? Like, and if you don't want him to do that, you want to push further, then we'll go further with it?
The legal requirements are going to vary by jurisdiction, but as a practical matter, when you're talking about somebody who's the alleged victim of a crime, the prosecutors always are wise to be sensitive to the wishes of the victim. And in most cases, I would like to think that whatever the end result is, the victim has given the thumbs up and feels vindicated by the system when it happens.